Gurave Gaura Chandaya Radhikaya Tadale Krishnaya Krishna Bhaktaya Tadabhaktaya Namo Namaha Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Gaura Bhaktavrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ramo Ramo Ramo. First of all, I give pranams to our Gurudev, on Vishnu Padridandi Swami Bhaktivedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj. Also today, especially our Shiksha Guru Tudandi Swami Sri Govinda Goswami Maharaj. So today is his 94th Vyas Puja. So we just came from another program, so I'm not feeling so much energetic. But still we would like to speak about him. So he was born on 2nd September 1929. And he was born in the village of Gadagiri in Orissa. Actually, just after Rath Yatra this year, I went there to his, not his birthplace, but where the deity of Gopal was originally situated. So what can we say? We should speak a little bit about Vaishnava Tattva. Actually, by Siddhanta, by definition, everyone is a Vaishnava. Because all jivas, all souls are servants of Bhagavan Sri Krishna. But some know it, others don't know it. But everyone is his servant. Kyamani, Kanamani, Savatara Das, Yanamani Tar Hoy Se So in some, that quality of being a Vaishnava is fully present, and in others it's there in a shrunken form, a hidden form. So unless we get the mercy of a Vaishnava, we cannot become Vaishnavas. Just like without water, a seed cannot become a plant. Without a husband, a woman cannot give birth to a child. In the same way, even though that potency to be a Vaishnava is there, unless we get the mercy of a Vaishnava, that will not manifest. Therefore, the scriptures say there again and again, nothing is more auspicious in this world than association with devotees. Therefore, sadhu sang, sarva shastra koila bhamatri sadhu sang, sarva siddhi. Even a moment with such a Vaishnava, one can achieve all perfection. So, I will try to speak carefully. So, what is bhakti? Nakaman Buddhist. It said, bhakti is not the vritti or the activity of the material mind, intelligence or senses. Bhakti is the vritti of Krishna's Surup Shakti. It is the essence of the Samvit and the Ladini Shaktis. So because the jiva is only a spark, a minute portion, like a minute sun molecule emanating from the sun globe, the presence of the Samvit and Ladini Shakti is present in us only in a minute form. So without the mercy of Surup Shakti, without taking shelter of the Surup Shakti, that Bhakti Vritti cannot manifest in the jiva. Again and again we have to read Jayavadama to understand. So, when the jiva takes shelter of the Surup Shakti, then that Bhakti tendency manifests. Many examples have been given for us to understand. Like you put a piece of iron into fire, by contact with the fire it becomes like fire, same as fire. So the jiva, by taking shelter of the Surup Shakti, will become like the Surup Shakti and Bhakti manifests. So who is the Guru? The Guru is Surup Shakti Push, the one who is nourished by the Surup Shakti. And how the Surup Shakti comes in this world, which is the manifestation of Maya Shakti. It comes to us through Guru Parampara. That without Diksha, without mercy of Vaishnava in Guru Parampara, one cannot serve Krishna, one cannot attain that qualification. I made a mistake last night. I said we would not give class tonight, so there were not many people watching. Anyway, because we just came home now. So, this Bhakti Shakti comes through the Guru Parampara. And how it comes to us, through the guidance of the Vaishnavas, through the Harikatha of the Vaishnavas, by the heartly blessing of the Vaishnavas, by the grace of the Vaishnavas. So by contacting that, then our eternal nature can be awoken. Therefore Mahaprabhu gave the example to Rupa Goswami, Malankori se beach kori aropan shravana kirtana jal kori ashit. The farmer plants the seed. Who is the farmer? That is Bhagavan ultimately. Bhagavan places the Surup in the Jiva, because Jiva and Surup are inherently non-different. Krishna is the cause of everything, therefore Krishna is also the cause of the service mood present in each soul. In the simple language, Krishna chooses what service he wants from any particular individual. And by hearing Harikatha by the Vaishnava, this is like rain, like water. So it's our benefit to always glorify such Vaishnavas, always remember them. By doing that, all obstacles are destroyed and bhakti is attained. So Srila Govinda was born, his name was Braj Bandhu. Malik, he was born in Orissa on 2nd September 1929 into a Vaishnava family. In Bhagavad Gita, Krishna explains one who does a little bit of this Vaishnava Dharma, they take birth in a wealthy family. But one who does a lot of Bhakti Dharma, they take birth in a family of transcendentalists. But Arjuna, that birth is very rare. Like Bhaktivinoda Thakur, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, his father was Bhaktivinoda Thakur. He took birth in that family. Like Didi, also born in Vaishnava family. Narottam, Srinivas, Shamananda especially. They're also all Vaishnavas. So that birth is very fortunate. Because from birth one gets a chance to hear Katha, to remember Krishna from birth. So Govinda Maharaj appeared in such a Vaishnava family. Therefore, especially, his family was one of the renowned kirtan groups. So Govinda said he grew up with the kirtans of Narottam Thakur. And he never ate anything which was not offered to the deity of Gopal. So from birth, we see this strong tendency in him for service. From young age, he began reading and studying Bhagavatam, Chaitanya Charitamrita. He completed a Bachelor of Arts, part-time. He was married, and teachers don't earn so much, so he would often talk about his Grihastha ashram as a great suffering. Because always there was so much shortage of his money. Even I think his brother died, so he also paid for the full education of his brother's children. So he said he would borrow money, and as soon as his paycheck would come, he would pay back his debts and start again. So he would talk about the great suffering of the Grihastha ashram. So he was always praying, when I can get out, when I can escape this. So he kept one diary. And pretty much every day he would say, Gopal, when you will take me out of this Grihastha ashram, when I can become sannyasi. So before the age of 50, it could be the age of even younger. Let me just quickly do the maths. Yes, at the age of 44 or something, he took Vanaprastha. Means he left his family. And he would tell his disciples, no one should remain in family life after 50 years old. He would tell them. So even though as a Grihastha he would chant Harinam and do Tulsi Seva and serve sadhus and read Bhagavatam, but no Guru was there. So after taking Vanapras for 2 years, he searched for a spiritual master but could not find anyone to his satisfaction. He said he met many of the disciples of Saraswati Thakur, but no heart-to-heart connection he felt. So finally he thought Krishna would fulfill my desire in Vrindavan. So he came to Vrindavan. Actually, when he got off the train, first he stayed in Kesaji Gaudiya Mata Mathura. But Gurudev was not there. Some people like Premananda Guru made a big story. If you read this false book, Guru Darshan, Gour Maharaj came, Gurudev spoke Harikatha to him all night. These are all false things. Then Gour Maharaj heard that, then asked Gurudev to be his Guru, and then Guru said, no, your Guru is in Vrindavan, and then Gurudev sent him to Vrindavan. This is complete lies. Gurudev never said this. Gour Maharaj never said this. And every year on Gour Maharaj's Vyasa Puja, Gurudev would talk about this. And Gurudev said, but unfortunately I was not there. Number one, if Gour Maharaj was looking for a Guru and he found his Guru, and his Guru said, no, I will not give initiation, Gour Maharaj would just give up like that. Ramanujacharya was 18 times, he was rejected by his Shiksha Guru, but he never gave up. So how can someone like Gour Maharaj just give up? Guru says no and he changes his mind. This is like great disrespect of Gour Maharaj. When I read that, then we became very angry. These people are blaspheming devotees. And also Gurudev, if he found such a qualified devotee, he'd just send him off somewhere else. He would have kept him near him. Well, no ways, this is all false things. So Gour Maharaj came there, and then he went to Vrindavan, and he went different temples looking. What is the conduct of the sadhus? What is their Harikatha? What are they teaching? Then finally, I think he saw a billboard. They're describing, and also he met a white devotee who gave him back to Godhead, an American devotee. So he went to where the ISKCON temple was being constructed. This would have been 1974. And there, he asked to meet with Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj. So when he asked, then the servant was saying, oh no, Prabhupada is taking prasad, you cannot meet now. Oh please, just I have 2-3 questions. So as Gour Maharaj was remonstrating with the Sevak to be able to meet with, have darshan with Prabhupada, then Prabhupada heard what's happening. One sadhu came, let him in. So Gour Maharaj came inside, Prabhupada was asked him a few questions. Where are you from? What are you doing? You've left everything? You want to take sannyas? I will give you sannyas, Prabhupada said. Then Gour Maharaj said, because he spoke what I kept hidden in my heart, I knew this is my Guru. Because who is Guru? He is the bona fide Vaishnava is non different than Hari, non different than Krishna. Therefore it said, Jiva Shakshad Nahi Tate Guru Chetaru Shiksha Guru Hoi Krishna Mahantasu. Krishna is present in our heart in the form of the internal Guru, the Cheta Guru, but we cannot hear him because we are not purified. So the internal Guru, the Cheta Guru takes the form externally as in the form of Mahant Guru or Vaishnava. Therefore Guru and Krishna are non-different. Krishna speaks through the mouth of Guru. Krishna gives mercy instruction through the mouth of Guru. So Gour Maharaj could understand, this is my Guru. Then funny enough, Prabhupada asked him immediately, can you translate something to Hindi? Yes, I was a school teacher. Then Prabhupada immediately gave him an article, translate this. Then Gour Maharaj translated, Prabhupada was very impressed. Give him a room, give him a desk, give him this and that. Gour Maharaj had not even taken initiation, but Prabhupada had given him 7. So afterwards he took Harinam, Diksha. Afterwards he took sannyas. And what he did, alone he translated all the books of his Guru into Orissa. Prabhupada had a whole lot, by that time Prabhupada had a whole army of people helping him. But Gour Maharaj alone. He translated, then of course people came, but he also made a printing press. And he also printed all the books of Prabhupada. And after printing them, he arranged his disciples to distribute these books all throughout Odisha especially. So he would say, this one of his mission. This was one of his missions. Therefore he took it, that was his service to translate, so he took it very seriously. He'd taken a vow to translate a certain amount of writing every day. So even after long international flights, those flights at sometimes 10, 12 hours, plus going to the airport, especially flight to America, it was exhausting. But even after arriving from international flights, he would not sleep. He would sit and finish his quota of translation. He was a very serious disciple. In fact, Gour Maharaj would say, that is disciple, one who follows the order of Guru, that is the disciple. So he did a lot of Vani Seva, so much preaching his Gaur Vani, these teachings of Gauranga all through Orissa. And Orissa is a very interesting place. It's a fully Vaishnava state, because in Orissa, everyone except Jagannath. Everyone knows about Mahaprabhu. Unfortunately, only 2% of the population is vegetarian. And amongst them, how many are Vaishnavas, we can say. But still great samskar is there. Every village has Sankirtan party, we saw. So, even though it's the poorest state of Orissa, Gour Maharaj did so much to transform the spiritual lives of the people. So after Gour Maharaj took sannyas in the Ram Navami of 1975, then Prabhupada told him, I want to come to Orissa. Someone had donated some land there. So Prabhupada said, I want to come. So first Gour Maharaj, with his own hands, he built a jhopri, a mud hut. Prabhupada he thought, for me to stay. And when Prabhupada came, Gour Maharaj would often talk about Prabhupada's visit. When Prabhupada came, then Gour Maharaj thought, he made arrangements for Prabhupada to stay in the state guest house. But when Prabhupada came, he said, no, I will not stay there, I will stay on Krishna's land. So for 10 days he stayed in the mud hut with Srila Govinda Maharaj. Then thousands of people came because Prabhupada was so famous at that time. And Prabhupada said, Govinda, everyone who comes must get prasad. So Gour Maharaj would laugh. But how, by Prabhupada's mercy, someone brought vegetables, someone brought rice, someone brought firewood, someone brought ghee. So thousands of people would come. Prabhupada would give lectures there. And everyone glorified Prabhupada. Really, his simple living. He's sadhu, but look how so wealthy and famous, but look how simply he is living. There Prabhupada began his translation on the 10th canto. There. Which is significant. And he gave Govinda Maharaj many instructions there, personal instructions. There are two types of order of the Guru, instructions from the Guru. One is for everyone at all time, all place, all circumstance. That is sarvakalik, that is applicable to everyone at all time, place and circumstance. Not like chant Harinam, not like Janadapi Sinachana, like offer your food to Krishna, do a courtesy. It's for everyone. But Guru also will give some specific instructions. So Prabhupada ordered him, build a temple here as big as Jagannath Puri. And at that time that land was in a very isolated place. So everyone was telling Prabhupada, don't build here, build in Jagannath Puri. Prabhupada said no. So Prabhupada said to God, this will become the most best temple in ISKCON. It will become in the center of the city. Like suggesting June, I went to Puri when I got the bus to the airport. We had no time to stop, unfortunately. So we see really now that temple like in the middle of the city. And Gour Maharaj would talk, Prabhupada knew past, present, future. So build temple for me as big as Jagannath. At that time, and he gave him instructions which deities to establish. Bronze, brass, Gour, Krishna Balaram, Jagannath, Baladev and Subala. Because Jagannath is the Ishtadev of Orissa, and also Prabhupada was angry at Jagannath because the Western devotees were not allowed into the temple. Then he would say, Krishna is Jagannath, Lord of the universe. He is not just Purinath, the Lord of Puri. He would speak like that. So Prabhupada was angry at Jagannath for not allowing his disciples, so he would not go to Puri because angry at Jagannath. He said, I will bring Jagannath here, then everyone will come. So, in 1978, Prabhupada left. Then Gour Maharaj was alone. 2 or 3 people came but could not stay. Because very austere, Gour Maharaj would only eat once a day. He would only sleep 1-2 hours a day. Very few people could tolerate that type of sadhak bhajan. So, gradually preaching and collecting, he collected some faithful followers. In 1986 he began initiating. And he built his temple. Beautiful temple. There was everything, restaurant, deity rooms, printing press, guest house, many things. Little libraries there, museum. Beautiful, beautiful things. There's also deities of Gour on the big altar, but also on the side. In 1986, then they were doing All India Padayatra, headed by Lokanath, Swami. They came to Bhubaneswar, but one of the bulls who was pulling the cart, he died. So those bulls were huge from Gujarat, with the big horns like this. But on Orissa, you see all the bulls are like micro bulls, 2-3 feet tall. So that someone would have to go to Orissa, buy a new bull from Gujarat and bring him back to Orissa. That is not simple thing. So for that time, maybe 1 month or 2 months, then the deities were kept with Govinda Maharaj next to him in his room. So Govinda Maharaj said that he would cook for the deities, he would offer to the deities like that. Then when Lokanath Swami came back, then he asked, please return the deities. Then Govinda Maharaj went to Gaunitai, now you'll have to go back on Padayatra. Lokanath Swami is calling him. Then Gaunitai spoke to Govinda Maharaj, no, we will not go back. We will stay here. Then Govinda Maharaj was shocked. He went to Lokanath. Deities will not, they don't want to go. Then Lokanath Maharaj was angry. So Govinda Maharaj went back. You'll have to go and partake. And Gaunitai became angry. No, we told you. We will not go. We will not go. We want to stay here and eat your cooking. So Govinda Maharaj told Lokanath, you cannot take them. So those deities are still there now, in the room next to his. And how much he had affection for Gaunitai. There's one story. Gour Maharaj's cook, because Gour Maharaj would take prasad late, 12 or midnight, after translation. So somehow the pujari, the cook, forgot to offer the bhoga to the deities of Gaunitai. Of course, the temple deities getting their own prasad, but who's going to offer prasad to the deities at midnight or something? So the cook forgot or something, then Govinda Maharaj, they gave him his meal, then Govinda Maharaj could understand this has not been offered, just by looking at it. Why it's not been offered, then Pujari said whatever. Then Govinda Maharaj began to cry. Gaunitai went to bed without prasad, without eating. My Gaunitai could not eat anything. Thinking that, he began to weep. Most of the time we don't eat, we weep. We don't care too much about Krishna. And thinking like that, he would also not eat. If Gaunitai had not eaten, how can I eat? So he refused food, refused prasad. So he was very ideal in his standard. So where to start? His life story is so huge. So he would say often about his mission. Prabhupada gave him 3 instructions. Build a temple, initiate disciples, and preach. So Gour Maharaj would often say, his preaching have 3 missions of his preaching, to visit all the holy places where Prabhupada visited. Those places are tirthas. Also, he said he hears people saying Prabhupada just gave ABC. Gour Maharaj, when I hear that, my blood boils. Prabhupada gave everything, but they cannot see, they're not qualified to see how he gave. So that was his mission, to show how Prabhupada gave everything in his writings, described everything. That was one of his big missions. So Gour Maharaj would take any commentary, any verse, any commentary, and so much expanded and point out all these things Prabhupada was saying. Like I remember there was one verse, Bhagavatam, it seemed like an ordinary verse. The constellations in the star, at night time the constellations of the sky are visible, but in daytime not visible. What does that mean? It seems quite ordinary. Then Gour Maharaj would look at the commentary of Prabhupada and explain, this is describing Krishna Prem. The opulence of Krishna is like the sun. So the Brijavasis never see that opulence, they just see the stars at night. They just taste Madhuri, pure affection for Krishna. And 3 days he explained that. I was there, how he can get this type of meaning from the ordinary meaning, from the very simple meaning it seems. So he would say, this is my mission, to show everything is there, but you cannot see it. And also he said, many people are leaving ISKCON, going here and there. When I see that, I feel pain. Why? I want to show them everything you're looking for is here in ISKCON. He would say like that. Not because Gour Maharaj was there personally, so why leave ISKCON and go outside for sadhusang? No necessary. So I had good fortune of meeting him in 1994. Actually, I had just joined I read books, I was chanting, and living near the temple, like 100-200 meters away. Then I joined full-time as a brahmachari, but quite disappointed. I became quite disappointed. Because what I was reading in the book was what I was not seeing being practically done by the management. Actually, the management were just stealing money and sticking it in their pockets. That was easy to see. Because we were brahmacharis collecting thousands and thousands every day. All this money, where was it going? Temple president who's married, he was getting paid. The cooks who were married, they were getting paid. The pujaris who were married, all this money was just going to pay all the grihastas. And then how much going in the pockets, who knows? Also, so we were just collecting money, no one was preaching, and that money was being misused. So I very quickly could see all this. And I remember thinking, this is quite rotten to the core, everything here. And the leaders, the GBC, the management were not doing anything. They're also getting money from these people. So I wanted to leave, but how can I leave? Because these teachings of Mahaprabhu are so perfect and wonderful. So I was in a very awkward spot. So I began praying to Prabhupada, I want a guru like you. I need some help. Then like magic, someone said, listen to this. Then someone gave me a tape of Govinda Maharaj. And hearing that tape was just like a blast of cool air. So wonderful, so powerful, so forceful, so realized. And I understood this is my guru. And then I ran away, I left the temple, went to the farm and stayed in the Goshala, so the problems of the temple didn't really worry me anymore. We were just with the cows. That was good life. And there, I was also listening to the tapes more and more. Also, I wrote a letter to Govinda Maharaj and got some nice answer. I still have that letter. I've lost everything else, but I have that. Then he was coming to Australia. So, Gour Maharaj had previously been banned once or twice from Australia because he spoke also against what was going on. So the management, they would ban him. So after some time of being banned, he was allowed back. He was not allowed in Sydney, but he was coming to Melbourne. So I was lucky, I was working before, and some money I had saved. So I had money to go on that tour. So I won't tell you, I won't tell you the whole history, but that's also quite funny. So he came to Melbourne in 1994. That was winter time. I guess that was August or something. August, September. So I remember he came out, and I remember that first impression, so heavy, so deep and grave. Guru means heavy. That was my first impression. So brave. Then, also because he was being banned and no one else was allowed to go, so all Mahaprasad that came from Gour Maharaj's room, I could eat all that. I remember that. Then he was giving his classes in the Melbourne temple. That was so powerful. It said Krishna comes in the form of Harikatha and enters our hearts for the year. What that means you cannot understand unless you hear from someone like Maharaj. So Shastri Katha, so in line with the scriptures. And he was so energetic, so blissful when he spoke. So blissful. So powerful also. And he was not just speaking for the sake of speaking, he was speaking for the audience to understand. This was one of his qualities. So he was there, he stayed like 5 days, 6 days. Then he went to the farm, the Melbourne farm. I also went there. But that was really wonderful. It was more intimate setting. No? Then he talked about the mercy of Nityananda Prabhu. Unless you get the kick of Nityananda, then you cannot get Mahaprabhu, you cannot get Radha Krishna. The mercy of Nityananda is the first thing. So very heart-shattering katha he gave. That would really transform him. So there in Melbourne I asked him for initiation. And he laughed, don't be in a rush for initiation. Prabhupada waited 12 years, then he took. But I accept you as disciple. He said that. Then from Melbourne we went to Adelaide. That was more wonderful because in Adelaide was only Govinda Maharaj's disciples. So the mood there was also very sweet. And there 7 days he stayed. Then I asked him for some instructions. I said, where I'm now, Sydney, they are mostly opposed to you. So he said, okay, you come here to Adelaide. So I went back to Sydney, but I began thinking, you know, Adelaide's the bottom of, Australia is the bottom of the world, and Adelaide's the bottom of Australia. Why should I stay there? Gour Maharaj said, always been sadhu sang, but there's no sadhu in Adelaide. Many things I was thinking. So thinking, I bought a one-way ticket to India. I still had my savings and stuff. So I bought my ticket to India. And when I came to India, then I was there, I came to Bhubaneswar. Then after maybe a week after he came. Then I didn't know, but at that time, because I'd left the temple in Sydney, then the authorities in Sydney were very agitated. They were writing many letters to Gour Maharaj, faxes at that time. Why you're taking devotees out of our temples, this and that. So I didn't know all this. So when Gour Maharaj came, he gave a welcome katha. And he was speaking, we should have greed for sadhu sang. We should have greed. So to get that sadhu sang, we have to kick some things. So some people are kicking this, kicking that, kicking temple president, kicking GBC and running for sadhu sang. He was laughing. Very good, he was saying, very good. Then I could understand he was talking about me. But I didn't know the background until later. So I had good fortune, I stayed there for a year and a half, a bit longer. So I stayed there full time with him. So my most favorite bits were the classes of Govinda. His classes were very long, 3-4 hours every day. And no one felt bored in his katha, no one felt so. Because he spoke with such contagious enthusiasm. Actually, he was a bit of a madman for katha. So that enthusiasm would also come to the hearers. When you would hear katha from him, you could feel Krishna would walk in the door any minute. You would feel like that. So especially afterwards, when he would walk back to his hut, because he was a little infirmed at that stage, so he would walk very slowly, and so maybe it would take 40 minutes for him to walk from the temple back to his little hut, even though it's only like 100 meters or something. And there also people could ask many, many questions. So my favorite memories are Padayatra. He would go village to village for 2 months. For the month of Kartik and the month of Katiyani. 2 months he would do village preaching. Every day we would go to 2 villages walking with deities of Gaunitai on bullock carts, staying in schools. And every night for 2 months Gogamaj gave the same katha, Ajamil katha, the glories of holy name. So, what can we say? So, he was not too much happy about the situation in ISKCON, because sometimes Guru may speak something according to time, place and circumstance. The problem is when unqualified disciples not understand that instruction and try to make that a rule applicable for everyone at all times and on all circumstances. Like, for example, Prabhupada definitely in a few places said the jiva falls from the spiritual world by Kunta. Why he spoke like that? Because in the Western countries, Mayavad is so strong. Unless they hear the soul comes from the spiritual world, they cannot. How can they have a conception we are Krishna's eternal servant? So Prabhupada spoke like that. Then unqualified disciples not try to reconcile the words of Guru with the words of the previous acharyas and the scriptures. They try to make that an absolute statement. So Gogamaj was fighting against that. The jiva not comes from Vaikuntha, because in Vaikuntha there are no jivas. Everything there is manifestations of the Surup Shakti. When the jiva goes there, he becomes just like the Surup Shakti. He becomes just like the eternal associates. Jiva Goswami says, like gold in a mountain and gold in a bracelet, same. There's no difference between them. But so much opposition was coming. And this made Gogamaj so sad, because now they're making Prabhupada look bad. They're misrepresenting the teachings of the Parampara. How anyone can tolerate. So he was very unhappy about that situation. So many people were envious, because when he would speak, so many people were attracted by him. Because Guru should be Uttamadikari on the topmost level of devotional service. Then he has no obstacles. Then we can clear away any obstacles of the disciples who follow him. So envy was coming when disciples of other gurus would come to him. Opposition was coming from his own people. Philosophical deviation was there. He was also being banned from many places like Russia, Europe, Australia, America. So he felt very dissatisfied, because these were obstacles to his service. His service was to preach. And if he could not fulfill his preaching, then what's the use? If he could not do his Guru Seva, what's the use of living? So he came back and he would talk about it. He said, my Param Gurudev Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur would say this world is no fit place for a gentleman. So he left. I am also feeling like leaving. He would speak like this. He's dissatisfied, very deeply dissatisfied. Of course, none of us could imagine he would leave, because his health was very strong. He would speak for hours, not speak, shout. And he was young, only 64. Same age as Saraswati Thakur almost. It's exactly the same age, 64. So he felt dissatisfied. So That's why on this day in 1996 he left this world, in Mayapur. He would only go to Mayapur once a year, but that is Lord Chaitanya's dham, so he left there. So today is his appearance day. We try to remember him. His ideal standard for sannyas, his ideal standard in bhajan, his enthusiasm for seva, harder than a thunderbolt and soft like a rose, so much affectionate but at the same time so much uncompromising. In the face of improper behavior, so much uncompromising. Many people only see one side of the sun, how uncompromising he is, hard like a thunderbolt. But also he's so much affectionate, more than millions of mothers. So I asked him some personal questions, especially I asked, when you leave, what will I do? Because you said we should always be under the guidance of Vaishnavas, but I don't know any Vaishnava. When you leave, what will happen to me? Then he laughed. I asked him this in Calcutta airport. And Govinda laughed. Then you go to Shiksha Guru? And I asked, who is Shiksha Guru? I don't know any Shiksha Guru. And he said, don't worry. Krishna will arrange. Guru will arrange everything. He said that. Guru will arrange. So one time he talked to me about Narayan Goswami. I asked him a question about Narayan Goswami. And Govinda very powerfully said, what is ISKCON? ISKCON means International Society for Krishna Consciousness. So that devotee was 100% Krishna conscious. He is true and bona fide member of ISKCON. You are thinking ISKCON, non-ISKCON, but this has no place in devotional service. If you get the chance for his association, you should be on it. So Govinda planted that seed in me also. I need Shiksha Guru. Which Shiksha Guru? You should run to Narayan Goswami. Direct instructions. So he cleared my path in all ways, actually. He cleared my path in many obstacles. That time he gave mercy, even now he is giving mercy. So, we should speak more in many things. So today we give pranam to his lotus feet. Always every year with Gurudev we would do this festival. But now Gurudev is there. I cannot do now, I'm in Nepal. So I just do by myself. And a few people watching on Facebook. Nityalila Parishi Gaur Govinda Goswami Maharaj. So we'll give class on Sunday, but Monday night, no. Monday night we have another program in the villages. So thank you everyone for listening. So try to remember Govinda, try to pray to him. He said when the Guru goes to Golok Vrindavan, he watches. He keeps an eye on the disciples who are following. We are not following too much, but still he keeps his eye on us and he blesses us. And soon we'll meet again. Nityalila Parishi Gaur Govinda Goswami Maharaj.